I never believed in strange rules until I took the night shift as a security guard at the oldest shopping mall in my city. The pay was surprisingly good, almost double what any other security company offered, and my supervisor smiled a little too much when he handed me the contract. "The work is easy," he said. "Just follow the rules exactly." Before I could ask what he meant, he slid a folded piece of paper across the desk. It wasn't part of the employee handbook. Someone had typed it on an old typewriter. Across the top, in faded black letters, it read, "Night Shift Rules. Rule 1. Never enter the east hallway after 2:13 a.m., even if you hear someone calling your name. Rule 2. If you see a child standing near the food court after midnight, do not acknowledge them. Continue walking. Rule 3. If the mall music starts playing after 1 a.m., leave the area immediately and wait exactly 5 minutes before returning. Rule 4. Never answer the phone in the security office after 3 a.m. Rule 5. If store 27 appears open, do not look inside. Rule 6. If the lights suddenly become brighter than normal, hide until they return to normal. Rule 7. If someone wearing a security uniform approaches you and you do not recognize them, run. Do not ask questions. At the bottom was a handwritten sentence in red ink. The rules are written because someone already died learning them. I laughed, assuming it was an elaborate prank for new employees. My supervisor didn't laugh back. He simply said, "Good luck," before leaving me alone in the enormous building. When the last customers walked out and the giant entrance doors locked behind them, the mall became unnaturally quiet. During the day, it was full of children laughing, people shopping, and music echoing through every corridor. At night, it felt abandoned, as if the building itself had been emptied of life. I grabbed my flashlight and started my first patrol. For the first hour, everything was completely normal. Empty stores, silent escalators, reflections in polished floors. I even started feeling embarrassed for believing the rule sheet for a moment. Then my radio crackled. Static. A voice whispered something I couldn't understand before disappearing. I checked every channel. Nothing. At exactly 12:37 a.m., I reached the food court. Every chair was neatly pushed under every table. The restaurants were dark. That's when I noticed a little girl standing beside the closed ice cream shop. She couldn't have been older than 8. She wore a white dress that looked decades old and held a red balloon. She stared directly at me without blinking. My first instinct was to help her. Maybe she'd been locked inside by accident. Then I remembered Rule 2. Do not acknowledge the child. Continue walking. Every instinct told me to stop, but I forced myself to keep moving. As I walked past, she spoke in a tiny voice. "Sir, I can't find my mommy." I kept walking. "Please." My heart pounded harder. "Please don't leave me." Every word sounded more desperate than the last. I nearly turned around. Then the voice changed. It became deeper, older. "Turn around." My skin froze. "Turn around now." The final words didn't sound human anymore. They echoed through the empty food court like several people speaking together. I walked faster without looking back. The temperature suddenly dropped. My flashlight flickered. I felt tiny footsteps running behind me. Closer, closer. Then they stopped. I reached the next hallway and finally dared to glance back. The food court was empty. No girl, no balloon, nothing. I stood there trying to calm my breathing when cheerful music suddenly filled the mall. Old-fashioned music, like something from 1950s. Rule 3. Leave immediately. I hurried into a nearby maintenance closet and shut the door. The music continued playing through hidden speakers, but after a few seconds another sound joined it. Footsteps. Hundreds of footsteps. They moved through the hallway outside, as if an invisible crowd had suddenly filled the mall. People laughed. Shopping bags rustled. Children screamed with excitement. Yet when I looked through the crack beneath the door, I saw nothing except empty floor. The footsteps continued for exactly 5 minutes before stopping all at once. Silence returned. I stepped outside. The hallway was empty again, but dusty footprints covered the polished floor, leading toward the east hallway. Rule 1 flashed through my mind. Never enter the east hallway after 2:13 a.m. My patrol route normally went through there, but I decided I'd avoid it completely. Around 1:40 a.m., I returned to the security office. The cameras showed every corridor in the building. I poured coffee and watched the screens. One camera suddenly filled with static, then another, then another. Finally, only one remained clear. It showed store 27. The lights inside slowly turned on. The shutters rolled upward by themselves. I stared at the monitor. Rule 5. Never look inside. But technically, I wasn't looking through the real storefront. I was watching the camera. Curiosity won. Shelves inside the store looked completely empty except for one elderly man standing in the middle aisle. He wore an expensive black suit and smiled directly at the camera. My stomach dropped. He shouldn't have known where the camera was. Then he slowly lifted one finger and pointed behind me. Every hair on my neck stood up. I turned around. No one. When I looked back at the monitor, the old man was inches away from the camera, smiling wider than seemed physically possible. His mouth stretched almost to his ears. The screen went black. Seconds later, every monitor returned to normal except store 27, which showed its shutter closed again. I convinced myself it was some kind of hack recording, but deep down, I knew that explanation didn't make sense. At 2:05 a.m., I heard footsteps approaching the security office. I expected another guard. Instead, I saw a man wearing the exact same security uniform as mine. Same company logo, same flashlight, same badge. The only difference was that I had never seen him before. He smiled politely. "Long night," he asked. "Rule 7. If someone wearing a security uniform approaches you and you do not recognize them, run." I didn't hesitate. I sprinted out the back door of the office. Behind me, he laughed. Not loudly, calmly, patiently. His footsteps never became faster, but somehow they stayed right behind me no matter how fast I ran. I raced through the central atrium, nearly slipping on the polished floor. Every storefront reflected the same impossible sight. In every window, the guard chasing me wasn't smiling anymore. He had no face, just smooth skin where his eyes and mouth should have been. I refused to look back directly. The reflections were enough. I ducked into a maintenance room and slammed the heavy door shut. Instantly, the footsteps stopped. Silence. Then 3 gentle knocks echoed from the other side. Knock, knock, knock. A familiar voice spoke. My supervisor's voice. "Open the door. It's safe now." I stayed silent. "You passed the test." Another pause. "You're hired." Then another voice interrupted. It was my own. "Don't open it." I covered my mouth in terror. My own voice continued speaking outside. "He's waiting." Then came laughter. Not one person. Dozens. The laughter echoed through the hallway before fading away. I remained inside for nearly 20 minutes before finally opening the door. The hallway was empty. My watch read 2:41 a.m. I still had hours left before sunrise. As I continued my patrol, I noticed something strange. The mall map near the escalator had changed. A new section appeared where nothing existed before. Lower level C. I had studied the building plans during training. There was no lower level C. Yet arrows now pointed toward a staircase behind the movie theater. I followed them before stopping myself halfway. The stairs descended into complete darkness. Cold air drifted upward carrying the smell of damp concrete and something rotten. A sign at the entrance read, "Welcome back." I had never been there before. I backed away. The sign slowly changed. The letters rearranged themselves one by one until it read, "You were here before." I turned around and nearly collided with the little girl holding the red balloon. She stood only inches away. This time she smiled. "You looked at the stairs," she whispered. "Now they know your name." Before I could react, she vanished, leaving only the balloon floating gently upward until it touched the ceiling and burst without making a sound. At exactly 3 a.m., the phone in the security office began ringing. 1 ring, 2 rings, 3 rings. Rule 4. Never answer it. I stayed outside the office listening as it rang again and again. After the 10th ring, it stopped. Relief washed over me. Then my cell phone vibrated. Unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. At first, there was only breathing. Then a frightened man whispered, "Don't let them know you're still alive." I asked who he was. "I worked your shift last year." His breathing became frantic. They're almost finished pretending to be people. I heard screaming in the background. The call disconnected. My phone immediately displayed no service. The lights throughout the mall suddenly became brighter than sunlight. Rule 6. Hide. I dove beneath a customer service counter just as the entire building flooded with blinding white light. Footsteps echoed everywhere. Slow, heavy, hundreds of them. Unlike before, these footsteps were real. I could see shadows moving beneath the counter. They stopped inches away from me. One pair of feet remained still. Minutes passed. Then something tapped gently on the countertop above my head. Tap, tap, tap. A woman's voice whispered, "We can see you." I squeezed my eyes shut. Another voice laughed. "He's pretending." More tapping. Then complete silence. After several minutes, the lights returned to normal. I crawled out carefully. Every mannequin from every clothing store now stood facing the customer service desk where I had hidden. None had been there before. Their blank plastic faces seemed almost disappointed that I'd survived. Dawn finally approached. The first rays of sunlight shone through the glass ceiling, and the overwhelming sense of dread vanished instantly. Employees began arriving for the morning shift as though nothing unusual had happened. My supervisor walked in carrying coffee. "How was your first night?" he asked casually. I placed the rule sheet on his desk. "What is this place?" He looked at the paper for a long moment before folding it neatly and putting it into his pocket. "You'll get another copy tonight," he replied. "You came back." I told him I wasn't coming back. No amount of money was worth what I'd experienced. He nodded as though he'd heard those words many times before. Everyone says that after the first night. As I turned to leave, I noticed dozens of framed employee photographs hanging behind his desk. Each showed a different night guard. Some looked decades old. Every single face had been scratched out except one. Mine. The picture had today's date beneath it, even though no one had taken my photograph. I stared at it in horror. My supervisor quietly locked the office door. "There's one rule we never give new employees," he said. "No one quits after seeing them all." The lights flickered once, even though the sun was shining outside. Somewhere deep inside the building, old cheerful music began playing again.